sponsored by Carnation, airing live on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM in New Orleans. This show's entrance has been edited, produced, and directed by Gwen Clapper from Perfect Trust Productions, LLC. You can find us at perfecttrustproductions.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday night segment of Horsefly Chronicles Radio with myself, Julia Siracusa, and Phil Siracusa. We're broadcasting live from the International Public Radio and the United Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM from New Orleans. This evening's show is fully sponsored by Carnation, so we want to thank them for their sponsorship. We love them. You will have to do a few things in order to participate. Go over to our YouTube channel, UFO Paranormal Radio, or International Public Radio. You can also go into all of the Facebook stations, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, UFO Undercover with Joe Montaldo, News on the Flip Side, also Twitch, SoundCloud, and Podbeam. Also go over to our group, Horsefly Chronicles Radio, and Facebook, and get in if you haven't joined. And if you have any questions for our guests, please ask. So tonight we want to say Happy Memorial Day. And we want to welcome our amazing guest to the show. So please welcome Tammie Merheb-Chavez. Hopefully it's
right. You got it right.
Welcome to the show. She is a costume designer for film, TV, and theater by day, and a paranormal investigator by night. Her introduction to the paranormal started at a very young age, while living around the legends and lores that surrounded her home city in New Orleans. In 2017, she created a true crime and paranormal podcast, Holly Weird Paranormal Podcast, with her co-host, Bryce Mitchell Williams. So please, let's welcome her to the show.
Welcome.
Yay!
Thank you guys for having me. Oh my goodness. I was just talking to my family in New Orleans not too long ago. So it's a pleasure being here and talking to my NOLA folks.
New Orleans, wow, there's so much over there, right? Tell us why is it that that's such a hot spot for ghosts and spirits?
Where, in New Orleans or Los Angeles?
New Orleans.
Oh, it's just an old city. It's a very old city, and it has a lot of history and a lot of dark history as well. Plus, it's a port city, so you're close to, the Mississippi. You're close to that huge body of water, the Gulf and stuff. So, water is also claimed to be a conductor of energy. So there's a lot culminating around there. And there's a lot of people that practice the occult there as well. And they practice voodoo and they practice other things that can, definitely, wake up something there.
I see documentaries on that. You talk about voodoo and the occult over there. Now, I don't know. What's your thoughts on they could raise people that just crossed over, for example, and they would do these rituals to raise the body and make the body function in a way where it's like a zombie, for example, in a sense where they're dancing with it somehow, they're moving with it during these chants. What do you think about that?
I believe that, we have to go into pretty much the beginnings of voodoo and why it started. It's actually a practice that comes back from like a Haitian culture as well. It was a practice for the slaves because it was something for them that they had of their own because they couldn't, learn how to read or write. So this is a way for them to communicate and express themselves as well. As for raising the dead, I guess you can say, it was part of a practice from what I've read, to appease the gods or appease, whom they practiced to, whether it was, to their ancestors or to certain types of, I guess, deities. That was just their way of trying to communicate and, I guess, feed into their spirit. But it is a very interesting religion that I think people have like some sort of like negative or or a different mindset because of what we've seen in film and what we've seen in shows and whatnot. But I think with a better understanding why they did it and whom they were appeasing could definitely answer a lot of our questions.
It's interesting. There's so many documentaries on that.
I know.
And they actually, in one sort of sense, they were happy when someone crossed over. It's part of like, they go on. Right?
Definitely. You know, it's just there's this like gateway almost. And it kind of parallels with another practice that I'm trying to read up more on is Santeria here in Los Angeles. You know, there are a couple of Santeras that I know. And it is something that they do too. I mean, they do sacrifice chickens. They do sacrifice animals. And I asked one of them in particular, why do they do that? Like, what is the whole purpose of that? Is like feeding blood to our deities. I think it's called like their sons. You're feeding, you're giving life, you're taking away life and giving life to whomever you're practicing to. So you're feeding to the gods and goddesses of that religion as well. And crossing over, you know, there is this type of gateway from our world and the spirit world. And I feel that is also a reflection of voodoo. I mean, I could be wrong. That is something that I've heard, you know, and read in passing from others who are, you know, in the process of practicing it as well.
Interesting. Very interesting. I was always fascinated by that. Hey,
Tammie, tell us, how did you get started in the paranormal, and tell us about your amazing career.
Yeah.
I actually grew up in New Orleans, and I just was always surrounded by legends and lores, you know, Legend of the Rougarou and the White Lady of Mona Lisa Drive up there by City Park. And I started working as a costume designer in old theaters. And it just so happened there was one particular old theater that I was working at, a summer stock in New Orleans, that had a ghost. And I had seen this apparent ghost without even knowing the legend of this apparent ghost that they called Bob. And I just remembered I was cutting fabric in the foyer of the theater because we just ran out of space in our shop. And I kept on seeing a man in the corner of my eye dressed up in black standing at the foot of the staircase. And I was even talking to this gentleman because I thought it was the director. You know, it's like, oh, hi, Mr. Sean, how you doing? You know, it's going to be a long day. And it's just no response. But I kept on seeing like a man dressed up in theater blacks just looking at me like this. And when I kept on looking up, it was like no one was there, but I could swear I saw this man. Like I saw his black hair, his black facial hair, and his black clothing. So during lunch, I go into the costume shop and I'm speaking with the ladies of the shop. They've been working in that theater for 20 something years. And I was like, hey, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but does this theater have a ghost? And immediately they said, yes. I'm like, well, whose his name? And they were like, that's Bob. And I said, does Bob wear blacks? Like, does he have theater blacks on? And right when we were talking about him, this woman who handles props comes in. And they told her immediately, oh, Tammie saw Bob. And she's like, oh, yeah, Bob used to be the lighting designer here. He used to be my mentor. And he passed away years ago due to cancer. And ever since then, he's come back to the theater. And my prop shop is right next to his lighting booth. So I definitely know that he's around. He's made his presence around and I mean, known to me. So I was like, well, what did Bob look like? She was like, oh, he had a black hair, black facial hair, like a mustache. And I was like, oh my God. And was he wearing black clothes? Yep, that's him. So right then and there, I had this crazy experience working in this theater. And then I started to move to film and I moved to Los Angeles and I worked with a production company that work in horror. And every location, I promise you, every location we've gone to had a haunted history attached to it. And things would always happen every time we were on set because of the amount of work that we would do on set. And it was just right there, it just catapulted me to be more involved in the paranormal. Everywhere I worked has a ghost of some sorts there.
Yeah, they're drawn to you. So
or it's just like all like aligned in my journey. I feel like we're all in some sort of path. And most likely, you know, for us, the paranormals is just a part of our journey.
Yeah.
You know what? I agree with you.
It's true.
It's like we didn't choose paranormal, but
It's
we're
true.
brought into it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mhm.
part of the whole mission that we're going through in this.
Exactly.
It's,
Yeah, we're learning something about it. It's always got a trick up its sleeve
Yeah,
somehow.
just
So
like it always leaves you with so many more questions, right?
it does. It absolutely does. And I think it never, whatever's there guarding it, it doesn't want you to know the answer until you finally cross
that's
over
true.
to the other
Yeah.
side. Yeah. That's how I always
That's
look
That's
at
a
it.
really good way of putting it.
There's
That's
some
true.
things you just don't get answers on. We've tried
Yeah.
multiple, like, you know, what's it like on that side? And it's vague. We've got communication, but it's vague. They don't go into detail. It's as if there's rules over there.
Yeah. The only one
Yeah.
who did.
Right.
That is
Yeah.
so true. That is so true. And I think for, you know, like going back, don't mean to like ricochet back to voodoo, but I feel like in that religion or that practice too, it, you know, there are people or beings there that they believe protect, you know, that spirit world. Just like what we think of the paranormal, we think that there's some sort of, there's something or someone that's protecting it too. And we're just not going to get those answers as we're living.
I agree.
Well, the good news
Yeah.
is we know that as paranormal investigators, we go on.
Yes.
That's the good news, right? It's not like, well, once you're dead, you're in the grave and it's over and that's it.
Yeah.
And the story. So we know that. And I've been able to help people, you know, teach people. We go on.
And then we get to figure out who we're going to haunt when we go.
Who would you guys haunt if you were a ghost? Who would you guys haunt? I always love asking people this question.
I would haunt all my neighbors.
I would haunt him and whoever. I don't know.
I would definitely haunt all my neighbors.
Yes.
Yeah, I would haunt my husband too.
Fascinating stuff. Amazing stuff. You know, what kind of equipment do you like to use as validation? Pictures, recordings?
Honestly, I kick it old school. I love using like a Sony recorder or the recorder on my phone or my iPhone. I was even told by a parapsychologist like that works because it has like a 3D mic on here, and I've captured some really astonishing recordings. And of course, I bring a camera, or I use the camera on my phone. Other devices, I love using an EDI or a K2 or a Melmeter that has a REM pod connected to it. And that one has never failed me at all. But I just like to keep it simple. I also like to bring a notepad and a pen to mark down the timestamps of when I felt something or heard something or thought I saw something, just so I know it's like fresh in my memory.
Yes.
In your opinion, why do spirits communicate with us?
I don't think it's why do spirits communicate with us. It's just, I feel like, why do we communicate with them? We see them.
Why do they respond?
I believe that they either have a message for us, or if you think about it, if you've been in a place for such a long time by yourself, seeing people coming and going, and you find that one person in that crowded room that could see you, like that one person in a dance hall that is dancing to your favorite tune, you are just drawn to that person. I feel like a lot of times too, that those entities or ethereal beings are just attracted to what we're so sensitive to, whether we can hear them or see them. And I believe that they get excited to where they want to communicate. They want to make their presence known. And it depends on the person, whether or not they want to move forward and kind of communicate back. Yeah.
So in theory, do you think more people, even if you're not in paranormal, should try to communicate with those that have crossed over, even loved ones, as if they can hear them the other side?
Oh, yeah, I believe so. I mean, I've spoken to psychics who's, especially evidential psychics, who really encourage that as a way for them to, or for all of us to communicate with our loved ones and our ancestors, especially in my culture. Like, it's so important to pay homage and to speak to our ancestors. And that is something that I feel like we try to do and practice in our field in the paranormal. We want to talk to our loved ones. We want to teach other people that they are capable to communicating with their loved ones as well.
Yes.
Has any loved one come into your dream after trying to contact them in the physical realm?
Personally,
Yes.
my grandmother, yeah, I've always felt her around. And it's funny because I've had, other psychics tell me that she is definitely strongly, like mainly around me, because she knows that, I still talk to her and I have her picture and I leave little offerings for her, because it's like kind of like that personal moment that you're still keeping their memory alive.
That's true.
That's
Yeah, I'm a believer in that
sweet.
too. You should always try to validate, communicate, and look for the signs, right? The song, the cardinal, the sense,
Exactly.
things that could, because I believe they're trying to say, hey, I'm here.
Especially if you have their things. I know with my grandma, I have a lot of her stuff. So I know that she, you know how they like to like guard, especially the older people, they like to like be around. They really do. And I feel like that is definitely a factor.
What do you have in our closet?
A lot.
Okay, because something is in there.
Oh, here we go.
In the middle of the night, moving around. Yeah. I'm trying to think of something else, but now I think
no, there's a lot of stuff in the closet. That's hers. Yeah.
But that's, it's interesting, but, well, really.
What?
Maybe we can move it to a different part of the house so I can sleep at night.
I didn't know this.
And maybe she wants it back somehow. I don't know.
You gotta have that Coco moment from Disney. It's like bring out the items of your ancestors, of your relatives, because they want to be remembered. I always feel like they always have our back, and it's always important to keep their memory alive. Definitely.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. What's your thoughts on reincarnation?
Oh my goodness. I've read a lot of journals and a lot of accounts of individuals who felt like they've had past lives. And there was that one little kid that actually lived somewhere in the Midwest and believed that he was a reincarnation of a famous film producer that lived here in Los Angeles. And everything that he would describe to his mother paralleled with the life of this one producer. And there's been a lot of documentation proving that there is life after death, that there is such thing as reincarnation, especially in other cultures as well. And I mean, that's right there. You have documentation and proof that there is something beyond, this realm. There is something beyond that light.
There's so many stories with children remembering.
Oh my gosh.
It's just crazy to me.
Especially deja vu.
I wonder if these memories stay with them throughout their lives, or they kind of like fade away.
They do. No, they do. Oh, they stay with them. There's a lot of accounts as they're old. They remember their dreams. And when, there are certain dreams that they remember until they're old and gray, it's something that is like kind of like proof or a light, like that says that they were this person in a past life.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Well, tell us about your podcast.
Oh, Hollywood Paranormal. So I started a podcast with Bryce Mitchell-Williams. We worked out of an old acting school in Hollywood, and the school was actually on the grounds of where the Charlie Chaplin studios, his personal dwellings once were, and they're still there. Next door is the Kermit the Frog Studios, the Jim Henson Studios, as we call it, which used to be Chaplin Studios back in 1920s. So they still have his house, two of his dwellings on the property where the school sits. They turned one of the dwellings into a library and the one next door into offices and a green room. And there were so many accounts of students and even staff throughout the years that we would hear have experiences in one of the houses and definitely in the theater. And we even had an account from a security guard that would see, oh my God, I would say like past a certain hour, like around 2 or 3, a man walking in a suit with a hat and he looked translucent, would disappear. And those were accounts that, I mean, circulated the school for many, many years. So it was other things too that would also occur on campus to myself and to other students. So Bryce and I thought, why don't we just create a podcast based on the paranormal and also based on Hollywood true crime, because there's always some sort of residue left behind by these, you know, famous people or these famous crimes here in the city.
Wow.
That's true.
It leaves such an impact.
Yeah, I know, like the studios where Elvis Presley was.
Yes.
They talk about that. It's fascinating. And
it
some
is.
people,
It's so crazy.
right?
Yeah,
You know,
like we. Oh, go ahead.
No, is it residual energy or is it active energy? You know, there's psychics. I forgot her name. She's on TV. She went to the Elvis studio out in Tennessee and said that he still walks around.
I would believe that.
Definitely. Oh, I believe that too. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that's another thing too that we want to know. It's like, is it residual or is it intelligent? And that's something that, you know, us investigators want to know. That's the data that we want to collect. Is it something that is left behind and absorbed in the universe and is playing back like the stone tape theory? Or is it something that is still intelligent, that is just, you know, connected to what they loved or felt most connected to on this earth?
Interesting. What's your thoughts on this? There's a lot of controversy and no one's really come up with a definitive answer, but is it just possible that when we die, we don't know we die? And I say that because, you know, the Mandela effect and some people believe we're in the Matrix. So, for example, you've crossed over and you don't even know that you've crossed over. But yet everything is the same. It's kind of it blows your mind in a way, but yeah, it's like we're still there with everybody that we knew. We didn't know we crossed over. And I bring that up because during some paranormal investigations, when we communicate with the other side, the answer is that I feel like they're still alive in their own realm. And are we the shadows and the footprint of them?
Yeah, is there a glitch in the matrix? Yeah, that is a question that is, you know, I don't think you're going to get a definitive answer. You know, that's something that I too have been looking up and trying to figure out as well. Like, you know, it goes back to that old school question, like, what is a ghost? Is a ghost something that is part of, you know, your earth manifesting into energy, as we call the stone tape theory? Is it something that's recorded, or is it a discarded agent? Meaning, is it a soul that was once a part of a living person? And, or is it something that, you know, is brought upon, you know, electric magnetic energy? Or is it something that is from another parallel universe? Are we seeing another time frame or another clip from another universe? And these are all different theories. Yeah, they're all different theories and hypotheses that, you know, are out there in journals. Like if you go on the Rhine Institute, you could read up on OBEs, out of body experiences. You could read up on NDEs, near death experiences, where people have known like they're not in the living, you know, realm, but they're in some different type of like universe, or whether they believe they've crossed over or possibly, you know, a different dimension. That goes into what are shadow people. Are shadow people are part of our universe, or they are interdimensional beings? So for a lot of individuals, they believe like, oh, it could be someone from a different time period, you know, from a different universe that is crossing on to our plane. And we don't know whether or not if that is a spirit or if that is just like what we call the glitch in the matrix right there. So I believe that it is a possibility. It's definitely a good hypothesis to look into and theorize, but also read up on as well. It's one of those open-ended questions, you know.
Exactly.
What is that phenomenon?
It is amazing. And the shadow people, I know firsthand, they're very intelligent. The responses that we've gotten are just, they're so advanced.
that's really interesting to hear, because we had issues at my last job, where Charlie Chaplin Studios was located. We had issues with students saying that they were seeing shadow people in their dorms, and these shadow people were very communicative. So that's really cool to know, like, from your data that you collected, that there's some sort of intelligence attached to them. What are they? We don't know. We don't know. That's another thing. People claim that they're demons. People claim they're aliens. People claim they're from a different dimension. But like I said, like, it's just no definitive answer yet until
there's no like no wrong answer to that. It's just
it's a big question mark, but they're very intelligent. And the things that they've told paranormal investigators, even at our home, years ago when we had it investigated, they knew who was on the cell phone, they knew who was outside, and they would talk through the recordings, and I tried to debunk it, but I couldn't. And they said that one person was actually texting somebody in my backyard, and in the basement they're talking through the audio saying who they're texting. And to me, that is mind-breaking, blowing evidence. Not only are they intelligent, so the question is, are they always around, or do they just come around during investigations or in the time of our intent to make communication? And intent is a big thing, because, Ouija boards, for example, if we have a strong intent to communicate with that side, sometimes they can come through and communicate and give us intelligent responses. And then are we part of that whole manifestation of making this happen? Because again, we're all energy, right? We've created the shell. The shell really doesn't exist, in the paranormal world, and even science, nothing is solid, right? Not this table that we're here, but it isn't solid. It's through us that we're making it solid. We're making everything around us. We create everything around us. So then, are these shadow people another form of intelligence that is another race, far advanced? Which leads me to a question, one of my favorites: UFOs, aliens. I mean, look, it's all over the news. What's your thoughts?
My dad had an experience with aliens. I'm half Lebanese. My dad is from Lebanon. And I have it recorded on my phone because I put it up on our Patreon for our podcast. But he has had an experience with an unknown flying object that flew over his cousin's house. He said that one night he was studying for exams at his cousin's house in Lebanon. And he went out for a cigarette break, and he was just sitting on top of this hill. And then he said, like, he felt this ginormous thing like above him, and he looked up, and it was just this aircraft. It was just so silent. He recreated the noise. It was like a boom, boom, boom. Like it was so palpable, but not loud enough for people that were inside to come out and see what it was. But he could hear it. He was like, it was the loudest, softest sound he ever heard, but he's never heard anything like it and never seen an object like that fly in the air. And it was so huge. He said it probably had taken up 4 or 5 like football fields. It was that huge. And it just flew above him, and it just slowly just went along the countryside, because where they were living, it was in the countryside of Lebanon in Tripoli. And it freaked him out. He went inside. He went and grabbed his cousin. When his cousin came out, like, it was already gone. But that is something that it's never left his mind. And I asked him, like, is that something that occurs? And he said, yeah, it's kind of odd because, when we talk to farmers around that area, they would see weird things in the sky. So, I mean, it's just everywhere, all over the world, that people are experiencing and witnessing some sort of unexplainable phenomenon in the sky.
There's way too
Isn't that amazing?
evidence.
I mean, look, last week, they were all over the news, the government, and they did say, honestly, we don't know what some of these things are. Some of them we can identify, and others we can't.
Mhm.
And I don't believe any other country has that technology from 50, 60 years ago. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
So that leads one thing. It's the other. And the other would be
There's,
we're not alone.
there's
And then the
Oh,
question
oh yeah.
is the spacecraft the alien, or is the alien riding the spacecraft? That's another question.
Oh God, that's another good question too. Like, who knows? Who knows? Like, or is it us flying it? You know, that or we're working with them already, and we're testing out
Yeah.
these like
Yeah,
ships. Yeah, which my dad believes. He was just like, it's just so it is when you have an experience like that, that is something that never lets you go, and that's when you know instantly that we're never alone. We're not alone in this universe. And
There's something happened here. What year? We live in Eastern PA, but we're broadcasting from New Orleans. But
2007,
in
July,
2000
there was a sighting, a UFO sighting.
in Eastern PA,
And I don't think it's
oh my
fair because
gosh,
we have to pay for gas, and we pay a lot of money. And I don't think it's fair that they go around. They don't have to pay for gas. Because I see one of these cracks at a gas station lately, and that just kind of makes me wonder why I'm paying $5 a gallon and they're paying nothing. I want a spacecraft to go around too. I mean, they beat traffic.
right?
They don't pay for gas. They don't have to get oil changes. They probably don't need a space wash.
Right. Oh my goodness, you don't have to wait in line
What do you have to
TSA
do?
in an airport, you know? You don't have to wait, in line and go through the cancellations of flights too. They lucked out.
So I
I
would say they
know.
haven't made it.
Yeah.
And ET, if you're listening out there, pick me up.
No, pick me first. I'm going first. I'm not staying with these kids. You're going. I'm going first. We're staying here with them.
Kind of jealous.
Maybe the aliens can come in and babysit your kids, and you're like, we're just
Yeah.
gonna take this first spin just around the corner. We'll be back, and you know,
if you
go
don't
around
laugh,
the world.
if you don't laugh a little at yourself, you'll just end up going nuts, and that's the whole.
I mean, look,
That's the life
between
that we live.
2020, 21, and 22, I mean, I don't even know what they're going to say next. Like Jurassic Park is real. You know, I don't know what's coming next. We have murder bees, we have flying spiders with parachutes that are coming soon.
Yeah.
Now there's monkey. Wait, what is it?
Well, no, the monkey. Yeah, there's so many different things out there that who knows
Oh
what's
my
next.
gosh, I know.
But
the
I
ocean's
do
very
know that
scary
I love
too.
the field that we're in, paranormal field,
Yeah.
and I love trying to communicate with the other side. I'm going to tell the listener, we go on as clear as day. I mean, I've debunked so much stuff to say that we don't, but we do. We do, and this is why we love this kind of work. And you know, you're in this too, and you know, I'm sure you help people and teach people through evidence and your knowledge, and that's why we like to do these shows. We keep it pushing forward because there's so much hurt in the world, especially now with all the horrific things going on, and we try to teach people like this is not the end. And we know that we're not scientists, but we know that as investigators, we go on. We do communicate with the other side. There's limits. We don't know everything, but we know that there's a communication platform and that from our knowledge, you know, this isn't it.
That is correct. That's how we should enter this field. And you said it too. We have to debunk because a lot of times, like, you know, a knock on the wall or a ding on the pipe, people instantly think it's something paranormal. And also, you know, I don't mean to bring this up, but I've noticed in several cases that I've been a part of, mental health also plays, and it plays as a stigma in our field. And there's this one case where this woman contacted us believing she had, I'm not even joking, 80 demons in her house. And when we went into her house, she was a hoarder. So she was living in chaos. She had a ton of cats that were, I mean, they were making a mess like everywhere. You could smell it. It smelled bad. Like it could drive someone insane. And when we were doing a walkthrough, we just noticed there were a ton of medication bottles in her sink, like just standing up on her sink. Some of them open, some of them empty, some of them closed. So she was taking a variety of medicine. And what she thought was she was seeing was most likely side effects from mixing 3 or 4 medications that she wasn't supposed to be mixing. And once the head investigators put her in touch with, you know, with help, she was limited, you know, a short amount of medication, like from 4 to 2. And soon, like all these, I guess, apparent phenomenon that was happening in her apartment that she claimed were demons stopped. And, you know, that is something too that we have to do. We have to like help and have a code of ethics. And these shows that we see them enter a house in an hour. It's like, okay, that's it. Well, what's the follow-up? What happened to that family? You know, you guys found out that there's something unexplainable, but what's really going on? And have they followed up with the family to see, you know, if everything's been okay? How has the activity, you know, been within the past, you know, couple of months? So you don't see that side of what we see on TV. And that's something that, we have to apply in what we do.
There's so much entailed to this. It's not just,
TV's a lot of editing.
Yeah, I mean,
and editing. They put a lot of stuff out. They cut so much out.
But it makes the regular person who's watching, you know, believe that it's real, you know, it isn't what it is.
Yeah. And it's also education too. Like, you know, to be honest, part of my journey is like, I thought that was what everything was, like investigating what you saw on television. But the more you work with other investigators, the more you learn. I also highly recommend people to take parapsychology classes too, to learn more about the science of what we're trying to understand, because there is a science. There are departments that go into it. You know, Dr. Barry Taft was a big one too, who was a part of the entity case. And then you also have Dr. Lloyd Auerbach, who is also an investigator who has been a part of some really big cases as well. And some he's debunked, and others he's like, hands in the air, I don't know what the hell that was. Yeah. But let's continue to learn and study it and figure it out.
Amazing.
Very well put.
Have you ever, during an investigation, encountered an angel?
Actually, no, I haven't, but I've been a part of seances where, you know, they brought up the possibility that someone had a guardian angel with them. And I believe that we do have our angels. I believe that they're always watching over us, whether we think that they're angels or maybe they're our ancestors, who knows, but I believe that there's a possibility.
And tell us, give us a case where you investigated, right?
Yeah, like something that was really...
It gave you like the chill, like the goosebumps.
I was at the David Oman house. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Oman house, but
we've interviewed him.
Yeah. And there was one instance that we were there with a big group of people. And I don't know if you're familiar with the house next door to his house, but that was the house that the maid from the Sharon Tate, that horrific day in 1969 of the Sharon Tate murders, that was the house that she knocked on and was able to go in to call the police. I've been inside that house, and that house is not good. It's just like, it's kind of like that is the bad and David's is the more balanced. But something was up with that house next door that we believe was coming over. And we have it, David has it somewhere. We saw it on camera. We were in the earthen wall room on the 3rd level, and we were doing an EVP session with a couple of people in our group, and they were all seated in that room. And one of the girls asked the question, can you give us a sign of your presence? Let us know that you're here. And it was like this weird silence occurred. And then out of nowhere, the floor started shaking. It shook for like 2 seconds, and everybody left screaming. And I was like, can we keep calm? I'm just the one trying to keep calm. And I'm looking at the camera. I'm like, David, did you get that? And I could hear him on the intercom. Yes. And you better come up. So we watched the footage, and you see after that girl asked the question, you see this black mist go into the floorboards of the earthen wall room. And then literally, like, you see the floorboard shake and everybody run out. So we believe that whatever was there, because we were touring next door, try to follow us next door, and it was trying to come in. But it was definitely something that was so strong, and that physical can respond in that manner. That really, really spooked me.
Wow. Have you ever had any attachments follow you home?
I was told that I've had a couple of things follow me home. just unexpectedly, apparently I have an older woman in my kitchen that I picked up from Mexico, apparently. But I'm of the mindset. I know. I'm like, can she help me with the dishes, please? But it was really funny. No, I mean, I've gone to locations and I've been read the same way by a couple of psychics that are like, you go in raw, dude. What the hell is this? And you come home and they're outside, but have you set your location? I'm like, yeah, because I'm of the mindset of, you know, if you go in with that intention thinking that something is going to follow you home, then something will follow you home. It's like you're offering that open invitation. I have the mindset where I set my space and I'm like, you're not welcome here. You're welcome outside, but you're not welcome in my safe space. And there have been times where my dog has seen things outside that we think, oh, it's probably an animal, but wait, there's no animals around here. So it's like, what is she really looking at outside? So maybe I've had a couple of things that probably have, but nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing really
Nothing
evil.
comes in. Yeah. Nothing bad. No. But as for that old woman in the kitchen, that I don't know. I've heard weird things happen in my kitchen, but I just kind of ignore them and like, okay, just as long as you're not breaking glasses, I'm fine. So
yeah, right.
There was a movie based on a true story where they were breaking the dishes, the glasses, way back in the day. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there was a movie on that. I mean, they destroyed everything.
Yeah.
You know? Who's cleaning up that?
Poltergeist?
There was a poltergeist, but it was based on a true story. It was a real story. I just couldn't think of it.
The Entity?
I don't know if was it the Entity? Did they break dishes in the Entity?
I don't.
Yeah, they did a lot of other things in the Entity too. That was a crazy case.
Bad movie.
That was probably that was one.
The scare.
That and Emily Rose.
It was
Emily Rose.
Oh my god, yeah, that one. I couldn't sleep for a week.
Yeah, it was scary. It was just like the thought of like these things like really happening.
She was raped by the guy, right? The male spirit.
But
and Emily Rose, I believe in. They could say, well, she had this, that, every other medical condition. But the truth is, if you see, she was a pretty lady, pretty girl, right?
Yeah.
And she deteriorated in a short time. Yeah. And then you hear some of the recordings, the real recordings, and you can't really debunk that, you know.
You can't. It's really scary.
And it's hard to understand because, like we said, they go after the weakest link too. So it could be someone who has a few issues going on, and it's so hard to like tell if it's like a medical thing sometimes, or both, or paranormal. It's
very hard. Yeah. I mean, there is a reason why now, from what I was a part of a discussion with Dr. Lloyd Auerbach, but there is a reason why now parapsychology is trying to offer courses to psychologists that they should take parapsychology classes, because they believe that now with mental health on the rise and people, not understanding like what's really happening in real time, that they should, investigators should bring on psychologists to do the evaluations, to do the interviews, to go through some sort of a panel with the client or whomever has experienced phenomenon in their house, to double check, like, is this person in the right mindset? Is what is happening based on what they're taking, or is there something undiagnosed?
Well, it could be both, right?
Yeah, it could be both. It could definitely, like the woman, in that one house with 80 demons, she had 80 cats, and they were, peeing and releasing themselves like everywhere. And that could also,
very sick.
Yeah, that could make someone very sick as well. So, the head investigator of that group made sure like she was given a direction on where to get help. And eventually she did, which was really, really good. So that's where, ethics comes in, and that's how it should be. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Have you ever caught any pictures of full body apparitions or close to it?
Yes, at the Myrtles Plantation. It is insane. The Myrtles Plantation is no joke. And the phenomenon that was leading up to the tour, I was taking a history tour. It was a 6 p.m. history tour throughout the level of the house, the bottom level of the house, We went through the dining room, and this gentleman standing next to me jumped, and he's like looking at me, looking at the dining room, looking at his butt. I'm like, what? He's like, something grabbed my pants. Something grabbed my pants. Did you grab my pants? And I was like, you're a stranger. Why would I do that? And and the docent heard. She's like, oh, that was, you know, little Emily. You know, she does that. She likes to grab onto the pant legs of, you know, gentlemen or the skirts of certain women. She pulls just to, you know, get a rise out of you. And I just started laughing. I'm like, you got jumped by a ghost, in other words. So I started laughing, and in my head, I was like, Emily, if you're here, I'm going to take this picture, and I want you to be in this picture. And I set that in my head, and I took a picture of the mirror in the living room. And, you know, as we know, as investigators, we take more than one. So I took a series of 4. And in the series of 4, you see this little girl looking at the camera lens. She's black and white. She has a big bow on her hair, and she's gray. She's looking at my camera, smirking. I have it, and I know I have it on our Instagram. And she's smirking. And then the next one shows a little boy in gray, and he's looking at the camera. And then the next one shows like a shadow person. It looks like a soldier, because at one point, the Myrtles Plantation on the 2nd level was a hospital. During a Civil War, they would bring soldiers in to attend to them. And when I went back on these pictures, they were all different. And then I remembered, wait, there were children on the tour, but the children were all wearing neon color clothing with a lot of loud symbols and Adidas and Nike symbols on them. So it looked nothing like the little girl in that mirror. But I showed it to the docent, and she grabs my hand and she shows me the picture of the little girl, and it looked almost identical. To that day, my mind is blown. It goes to show you that they're still around, especially at the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville.
Wow.
Interesting.
Amazing.
Right? I heard that. It's on TV, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's, I mean, people experience so much there. The accounts, we all go by off of those accounts, and there have been full body apparition accounts and EVP accounts, everything, shadow people accounts, you name it, it's all there.
I love it. I love it. And to the listener, I'll tell you why I say I love it, because it ain't all spooks and horror and what movies and TV shows are made out of. There's so much good to what we do in the paranormal field of, hey, you know what? We call it a haunting. Maybe when we cross over, we're going to see, wait a second, this is just the beginning. It's mind-blowing, and we truly do go on. This has been a quick show, on a great show.
It's always so fast.
Tell people where they can find you and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Hollywood Paranormal. You can also venture to our website, hollywoodparanormal.com. You can also venture and see my work as a costume designer at tammiemerheb.com. And also, if you follow Travel Channel on Instagram and on TikTok, I'm also one of their content creators. So I've been working with them and sharing, stories, sharing investigations that I've been a part of with travel.
Awesome. Wow. That's great. Good for you. I mean, you're such a very well-spoken guest, a lot of knowledge. People, please share the show. It's a great show, and we look forward to speaking to you in the future.
I look forward to it too. I hope I investigate with you guys. You guys sound really, really dope. Yeah. If I was a ghost, I would make communication with you.
Oh, yeah. I would.
Come down to the Horsefly Chronicle home. He's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's haunted.
Yes. Maybe we're the ghost, like the movie
like
The
Others.
Maybe we're the ghost.
Oh my God, that movie is crazy.
Well,
mind blowing.
Everybody, thank you so much. Thank you to Carnation for sponsoring the show. We love them. They've been sponsoring us from day one, and you can join us next Monday night, same time, 8 p.m. EST, 7 CT on 105.3 FM from New Orleans, and stay tuned for Trish Mo with The Missing Piece. Thank you, Tammie, so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. You're a great guest.
Thank you
for listening, and we'll catch you again next week. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Bye.